loud, sir.
Your host, Matthew Bay!
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. We are the Not Ready for E1 players. Coming up in the show, we got a crazy Week 16 breakdown. What happened to Alshon Jeffrey, Michael Crabtree, and all those stud wide receivers? Jeff Saturday comes by to tell us who starred and who is a fluke from Week 16. Plus, Santa Gurley keeps on giving. But first, Secret Squirrel, today's show will be...
Boxing Day, but with real punches, Matthew.
Bring it on, Secret Squirrel. Bring it on. So if you celebrate Christmas, you know the carnage that is found in living rooms after the gifts are open. Like, you should have seen my living room yesterday morning. Crumpled paper everywhere. Boxes all torn apart. Toys half put together. Puzzle pieces spread across the carpet. And the plate of cookies you left for Santa by the fireplace covered with crumbs. Would it kill you to put the plate in the dishwasher, Claus? It's the same today as we survey the NFL after Christmas. Carnage everywhere. Melvin Gordon, running back 5 in the season, left the Chargers win on Sunday late with an ankle injury. His status very much up in the air for Week 17. DeMarco Murray left Tennessee's game on Sunday as well with a knee injury. He's been all but officially declared out for the week. And Joe Mixon, in his first game back from Week 13 concussion, suffered an ankle injury, did not return to action. Yeah, it was a rough Christmas for running backs. But while Christmas comes just once a year, your fantasy lineup needs to be rostered 17 times a year if you make the finals in ESPN standard leagues, which go till Week 17. So if you have any of those running backs and you're still alive in Week 17, you need a Christmas miracle, or at least some helpful fantasy football analysis on who to pick up in their place. So if Gordon doesn't go for the Chargers on Sunday, Brandon Oliver would be the clear replacement. Austin Eckler has a hand injury. He only played special teams last week, so Brandon Oliver would carry the load against Oakland. Oliver, who's had some success in the past when he's gotten work, is available in 99% of leagues and gets a Raiders defense that has given up over 22 fantasy points a game to opposing running backs in the last 4 games. If DeMarco Murray is indeed out of the picture in Tennessee, I expect him to be, Derrick Henry elevated from a risky flex play to now a high-end RB2. Frankly, Henry's been the better back all season long in Tennessee, but his usage has been cut down by Murray's presence, obviously. With no Murray, Henry's going to get a lot of work. Now, Titans do play the Jaguars, but the Jacksonville defense did just give up 131 rushing yards to the 49ers. They're 21st against the run over the last 4 weeks, and they're likely resting some starters in Week 17. Henry is an easy top 15 play for me this week. Finally, if Joe Mixon is out in Week 17 for the Bengals, Giovanni Bernard becomes the clear replacement once again. Actually, he's been the better running back all season long, averaging 18.4 fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks. They now play the Ravens. All right, not great, but Baltimore has allowed 6 running back touchdowns in just the last 5 games. Frank Gore just ran all over them last week. And Bernard's still available in more than 50% of ESPN leagues, which, frankly, is one of the best post-Christmas bargains you'll find all week.
Yeah.
For hundreds of years, Santa has been the name associated with generosity and giving the holiday season. But your time is up, Kringle. There's a new name in town to give something far more important than toys and stockings full of candy. The new Santa gives fantasy points. Tons of fantasy points. The new Santa's name, Todd. Todd Claus. Or as some of you may know him, Todd Gurley. For the 2nd week in a row, both coming in the fantasy playoffs, mind you, Todd Gurley scored 40-plus fantasy points in Weeks 15 and 16. He has put up 94.6 fantasy points in PPR. 94.6!
Yeah.
That is more than Adrian Peterson, Doug Martin, Torrey Smith, and Dante Moncrief have scored all season. From Weeks 14 to 16, the first 3 of a 4-week playoff in standard ESPN leagues, Gurley has 123.1 points. That's more than every other player over that period in the wild card era. Anytime you're on top of a list that includes LaDainian Tomlinson, Jamal Charles, Marshall Faulk, Odell Beckham, and Santa Claus, you're in a pretty good place. Gurley, by the way, on 39% of the teams in ESPN leagues contending for a championship, And with 383 PPR points on the season, Todd Gurley has the 20th best total by a running back in NFL history. Oh, and by the way, still has 1 week to go. But now for the potentially bad news. Santa Todd might be about to settle down for a long winter's nap, or at least a 1 week nap. Look, the Rams have already clinched the NFC West. They are officially out of the running for a first-round bye, meaning Gurley may not be running with much to play for in Week 17. We don't know how Sean McVay is going to play this, but it's something to keep an eye on, which would be a tough break for fantasy teams hoping for another 40-point performance in Week 17. On the other hand, young player, they do want the 3 over the 4. Maybe he does go. The fact of the matter is regardless of what you get out of Todd Gurley, you got nothing to complain about if he doesn't go in Week 17. Todd Claus is the reason you made it this far. When the Todd father speaks, it's wise to listen to his words. You may find yourself sleeping with a fantasy fish. And Todd Gurley tweeted this after his latest monster game. Quote, "Fantasy owners, you're welcome. Now leave us alone. Merry Christmas." That's Todd Gurley on Twitter. Look, any fantasy team managers with Todd Gurley on their team, undoubtedly grateful for his performances throughout the fantasy playoffs. But there seems to be something Gurley doesn't know. The fantasy playoffs are actually not over. In ESPN standard leagues, the season actually runs through Week 17, which means factoring in players and teams with nothing to play for is actually a big part of setting your Week 17 lineup. Gurley's Rams can't get a first-round bye, which means potentially Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp may sit some or all on Sunday. We don't know how that's going to play out just yet. One thing we do know, the Eagles have locked up the #1 seed in the NFC. So remember that Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, Jay Ajayi, Nick Foles, and the rest of the Eagles' fantasy-relevant players may rest up for all or part of their game. In the AFC, the Jaguars and the Chiefs have both clinched their divisions, but neither can get a first-round bye even if they win this week. So Sunday could end up being a de facto first-round bye for Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, Alex Smith, Travis Kelce, Leonard Fournette, Blake Bortles, and possibly some Jaguars wide receivers. We will get more info on who is in and who is out as we get closer to Sunday. But if you have any of these players on your roster, look, you need a backup plan. Work the wire 1 more week, my friend. And listen, no matter what Todd Gurley, the greatest fantasy player of 2017, says, the fantasy season is not over. That's why the show is still in the air, right? Well, that and all the execs are off for the holidays and forgot to cancel us. See? Normally my boss Norman would pop up there and tell me to talk about how LeBron and the Celtics play January 3rd on ESPN. But he's not here. So instead, I'll just tell you to watch the fantasy show all week long for everything you need to know about Week 17. So Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Look, I only say arguably because as a Redskins fan, I'm pretty sure that Gus Frerotte would have been the original late-round quarterback to become the greatest ever had he not tragically headbutted that wall in 1997. Hashtag in Gus we trust, hashtag Gus ruined Christmas. But listen, Tom Brady obviously very, very good, one of the greatest of all time. But look at this blind resume from the last 4 weeks, okay? Since Week 13, one quarterback has been much better than the other. Obviously, one's Brady, the other one, his former backup, Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, Brady's been off the last month. Garoppolo close to earning a $150 million contract and probably no less than 10 statues outside of Levi Stadium, thanks to his play over the same time period. By the way, since he became the starter, Jimmy GQ, quarterback 8 in the NFL. Now check out this blind resume. Okay, Tom Brady versus... Yeah, not only has Tom Brady been outplayed by the quarterback who was his backup at the start of the season, he also hasn't performed much better than Jacoby Brissett, New England's third-string quarterback at the start of this year. My point is this.
That Tom Brady is a bum now, and the Patriots should bench him for Brian Hoyer. Dear up the bum.
No, Strawman, no. Tom Brady is not a bum who should not be dropped. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
Too late. Already dear up the bum.
Good luck with that, Strawman. Look, I'm not saying anyone should drop Brady. Definitely not, okay?
Dear up him.
I am saying that I can completely understand not starting Tom Brady at this point for Week 17.
Dear up the... Woo-hoo. Woo, you're about as accurate as Tom Brady.
Yeah. Tom Brady, who is definitely not a bum, has actually been quarterback 20 over the last 4 weeks, right? He has just 4 touchdown passes in the last 4 games, and in Week 17 he plays the Jets, a team that he has struggled against in the past, including a middle-of-the-road 16 points in Week 6. The game's going to be played in probably 10-degree weather as well, so not the greatest weather for throwing the ball. Again, I'm not saying you should bench Tom Brady in the fantasy finals, I'm just not saying it's not insane to do so if you have better options. Like, for example, someone as good as pre-headbutt Gus Farrat.
Gus Farrat, now that is a bomb.
You take the way. Well, it's the last week of the fantasy show for the 2017 season, and because of that, we decided to have our show league's finals in week 16, so we can present the results of it on the show today to all of you, our viewers. So, Secret Squirrel, would you like to announce the winner of our show league?
No, I would not.
All right, let me try that again. Daniel, announce the winner of our show league, please. And while you do that, I will loosen up my arm to pat myself on the back.
I'm in
Go ahead,
this
Secret Squirrel.
stupid show league, a league in which I scored the second number of points, I would like to remind you. Matthew Berry finally won everything.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Daniel. Who,
Yeah, I
who
got
the
it,
league?
Matthew. Okay, you won the stupid league, okay? You won the league, okay?
That's right. I won the league. And Secret Squirrel, why don't you come over here and help me break down my championship win over Fabrizio, the creepiest of our minions.
Huh.
So here you go. Look at this. You look at it on the screen. It was frankly an ugly championship. Like, I thought Adam Thielen and Brandon Cooks and Alex Collins had really let me down in a big way until Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, man. Monday Night Football came down to Alshon Jeffrey, and he got a goose egg.
I was down 16 heading into Monday night. I had Zach Ertz and Jake Elliott, and Fabrizio only had Alshon Jeffrey. So I needed to outscore Alshon Jeffrey by 16 points on Monday night. Didn't think it was going to happen. But thank you, Nick Foles, for not even looking in Alshon's way.
What happened to Brandon Cooks and Adam Thielen, though? Seriously.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely brutal. Obviously, the Ravens defense, you thought they would have had a better day. Alex Collins in a dream matchup with over 20 touches does nothing here. But, you know, luckily Alshon Jeffrey does nothing.
Wow.
Freeman and Prescott, it frankly was, he had worse players than I did. We both had very good teams, as you can see there. But,
Yeah.
honestly, I outlasted it. And with Kamara and Thielen and Tom Brady, is it any wonder, Kareem Hunt? Any wonder that I won the league?
Any wonder. Did you know that 3 out of the 4 teams in the consolation bracket outscored you this week, including me?
I know, but you know what? You have to get there first.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
done
lot
with
of woulda, coulda,
Yeah,
shoulda
yeah, okay,
that could have happened.
Yeah,
The fact of the matter, there is only one person that is the champion, and that's me, Secret Squirrel. It's not you.
Sure.
I just want to point out.
No, thanks for that.
Yeah, please refer to me as Champ.
Okay.
The rest of the show.
You got a kid.
Coming up after the break, not my name, Champ. It's what the Festivus just happened. Yes, we're going to talk about Alshon Jeffrey and Michael Crabtree, who combined for 0 points this weekend. We'll also discuss a few players who actually did score. Stay tuned, said the Champ.
On Modelo Especial, brewed with a fighting spirit since 1925.
New Year's Day, we're going to have the college football playoff semifinals on ESPN. Number 2, Oklahoma. Number 3, Georgia kick things off in the Rose Bowl game at 5 p.m. Eastern from Pasadena. Then, number 1, Clemson, and number 4, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl from New Orleans. Both teams, of course, also streaming live on the ESPN app. Now, some of you probably got bounced out of the fantasy playoffs this weekend or lost your championship. Look, it's a time to look at why. In our segment, we like to call What the Just Happened. Take it away, crazy voice guy.
Alshon Jeffrey had 0 yards on 0 catches against the Raiders. What the just happened?
Yeah, thank you, Nick Foles, for not even looking in Alshon Jeffrey's way. Helped me win a championship. But the fact of the matter is it was brutal. They just didn't want to look outside. I don't know if it was because of the wind or just Nick Foles just never even looked in his way. Almost had potentially 1 touchdown, but just not a lot of targets there. 224 players had a catch in Week 16, including Bobo Wilson, Isaiah McKenzie, Austin Traylor, and Ryan Malik. Alshon did not. 69 straight games with a catch in which he played. This is the only time he hasn't gotten a catch other than Week 15 of his rookie year. I think better days are ahead for that entire offense, although you can't really trust him in Week 17 with the Eagles having clinched the number 1 bye throughout the NFC playoffs. Just a tough end of the season for Alshon Jeffrey and the Eagles. Who's next?
Michael Crabtree. Stop me if you heard this before. Had 0 yards and 0 catches against the Eagles. What the fantasy championships just happened?
Yeah, this is another brutal game. I mean, if you told me there were going to be not just 1, but 2 star wide receivers with 0 receptions in this game, would have been insane. Again, it was cold, it was windy, and Derek Carr did not play well. Keep in mind, his 51.7 completion percentage in this game, his lowest since Week 14 of last year. Carr did not look good. Crabtree almost had a touchdown, wasn't able to come down with it. They did look for him there in the goal line, but ultimately Amari Cooper had the big play, and they just couldn't get anything going. It was a defensive battle on both sides of the ball here, so it's a weird day, but ultimately I think you have to start Michael Crabtree again next week. Better days are ahead for him. Who's next?
Brandon Cooks had just 2 catches for 19 yards against the Bills. What the Foxborough just happened?
Yeah, well, part of this is Tom Brady, right? We talked about this earlier in the show. Tom Brady just hasn't had big fantasy production. They've been running the ball a lot more. Think about this on Brandon Cooks. He is wide receiver 57 over the last 4 weeks. He now has less than 5 catches in each of his last 4 games. And in fact, over that time span, the 4 games, he's tied for 63rd in the league in terms of targets. He's tied with Danny Amendola for just 21 targets in those 4 games. He's a guy that you need to score. He has just 1 game with over 100 receiving yards this year. So as they go more run heavy, I don't know that you can trust Brandon Cooks. He's a boomer bust wide receiver 3 for me in a Week 17 game that's going to be played in really cold weather. It's unfortunate, but, the Patriots just spread the ball around a lot, and they're running more these days than you would like if you have Brandon Cooks on your roster. Who's next?
Adam Thielen only had 2 catches for 24 yards at Green Bay. What the F. Scott Fitzgerald just happened?
Well, it was freezing cold. I mean, honestly, I think the day looks a lot different. Remember, Keenum threw a long pass to Adam Thielen, had him streaking down the sideline. Would have been a 55-yard touchdown pass, except he just overthrew him by a little bit. So, honestly, I think if they connect on that play, it looks a lot different. It was obviously a down game for Case Keenum as well. As good as Adam Thielen has been, and I know he's struggled the last 2 weeks, I think you have to keep starting him. That offense is too good. Keep in mind, the Vikings do play at home this week, so I think better days are ahead for Adam Thielen and the Vikings offense. Tough game, but again, they just missed on that one big play. Hopefully, better days are ahead for Adam Thielen. All right, who's next?
Devonta Freeman only had 36 rushing yards and 20 receiving yards against the Saints. What the 5.6 fantasy points just happened?
Yeah, this one was brutal because it could have been a much bigger day. Freeman got 3 different carries in goal-to-go situations, including one that he fumbled and just couldn't get into the end zone in that. And then for some reason they went, Freeman, who's been so good for the last couple of weeks, for some reason the Falcons just went away from him in the second half. He had just 7 touches. Tevin Coleman had 10. Falcons rushed on just 30% of their plays. That's the second lowest percentage in a game this year. Honestly, I just think they realize if they're going to win the game, they need to rely on the run game, and that starts with Devonta Freeman. Matt Ryan is not winning them games. I expect better days ahead in Week 17 for Devonta Freeman as the Falcons try to get into the playoffs. Coming up next, it's Week 16's The Beard and the Beautiful. No, we didn't create a segment for Daniel Dopp. Never that. Instead, Jeff Saturday going to be here to talk about the best and worst performances of the week. So stay tuned. Christmas for running backs. But while Christmas comes just once a year, your fantasy lineup needs to be rostered 17 times a year if you make the finals in ESPN standard leagues, which go till Week 17. So if you have any of those running backs and you're still alive in Week 17, you need a Christmas miracle, or at least some helpful fantasy football analysis on who to pick up in their place. So if Gordon doesn't go for the Chargers on Sunday, Brandon Oliver would be the clear replacement. Austin Eckler has a hand injury. He only played special teams last week. So Brandon Oliver, would it kill you to put the plate in the dishwasher clause? It's the same today as we survey the NFL after Christmas. Carnage everywhere. Melvin Gordon, running back 5 in the season, left the Chargers win on Sunday late with an ankle injury. His status very much up in the air for Week 17. DeMarco Murray left Tennessee's game on Sunday as well with a knee injury. He's been all but officially declared out for the week. And Joe Mixon, in his first game back from Week 13 concussion, suffered an ankle injury, did not return to action. Yeah, it was a rough Christmas.
And now, your host, Matthew Berry!
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. We are the Not Ready for E1 players. Coming up in the show, we got a crazy Week 16 breakdown. What happened to Alshon Jeffrey, Michael Crabtree, and all those stud wide receivers? Jeff Saturday comes by to tell us who starred and who is a fluke from Week 16. Plus, Santa Gurley keeps on giving. But first, Secret Score.
Cloud surf.
today's show will be...
Ooh. Boxing Day, but with real punches, Matthew.
Bring it on, Secret Squirrel. Bring it on. So if you celebrate Christmas, you know the carnage that's found in living rooms after the gifts are open. Like, you should have seen my living room yesterday morning. Crumpled paper everywhere. Boxes all torn apart. Toys half put together. Puzzle pieces spread across the carpet. And the plate of cookies you left for Santa by the fireplace covered with crumbs.